I still remember the day it all started to fall apart. I was sitting in my tiny apartment in Maplewood Heights, staring at another rejection letter from yet another job application. My phone buzzed with a text from my mom. Ashley got promoted to captain today. When are you going to do something with your life, Rachel? I threw my phone across the room and watched it bounce off the wall. 29 years old and still being compared to my perfect little sister. Ashley had always been the golden child. Straight A's in school, full scholarship to college, graduated top of her class from military academy. Meanwhile, I was the one who barely scraped by, who changed majors 3 times, who couldn't seem to hold down a job for more than 6 months. The thing is, my family never bothered to ask why I kept leaving jobs. They just assumed I was lazy or incompetent. They had no idea that every time I got close to staying somewhere long-term, I'd get a call that would change everything. A call that would send me halfway across the world on missions that didn't officially exist. My parents had given up on me completely. At family dinners, they'd barely acknowledge I was there. Instead, they'd spend the entire time talking about Ashley's latest achievements. "Did you hear Ashley is being considered for a special assignment?" my dad would say. "She's really making something of herself." And there I'd sit, picking at my food, listening to them talk about their successful daughter while completely ignoring the other one sitting right at the table. It hurt more than I could ever admit. These were the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally, but instead they treated me like I was some kind of burden they had to endure. The worst part was Ashley herself. She never defended me, never once told our parents to ease up. If anything, she seemed to enjoy being the favorite. She'd give me these little smirks whenever our parents praised her, like she was rubbing it in my face that she was better than me in every way. Last month had been the breaking point. We were all at Ashley's apartment celebrating her latest promotion. She lived in this gorgeous place downtown, all modern furniture and expensive decorations. Meanwhile, I was struggling to pay rent on my shoebox apartment in the worst part of town. "Rachel, sweetie," my mom had said with that fake concerned voice she used when she was about to say something hurtful. "Don't you think it's time you figured out what you want to do with your life? You're almost 30. Most people have careers by now." I had looked around the room at their faces. My mom with her disapproving frown. My dad shaking his head like he was disappointed in me. Ashley trying to hide her smile behind her wine glass. Even my Uncle Jim, who had always been nice to me, was looking at me with pity. "I'm working on it," I had mumbled, but nobody was listening anymore. They had already moved on to discussing Ashley's new assignment. That night, I went home and cried harder than I had in years. Not because I was upset about my job situation, but because my own family had written me off as a complete failure. They had no idea who I really was, or what I was actually capable of. But as I sat there in my apartment, wiping away tears, my secure phone started ringing. The phone that only 3 people in the world had the number to. The phone that meant I was about to disappear again, leaving behind another job and another set of disappointed relatives. I answered on the second ring. "General Martinez," the voice said. "We need you." And just like that, everything was about to change. Because in 3 days, Ashley's unit was going to get a new commanding officer. Someone they'd never seen before. Someone who would turn their entire world upside down. Someone who looked exactly like the family failure they all thought they knew. I hung up the phone and stared at the ceiling for a long moment. 3 days. In 3 days, everything would change. But right now, I had to prepare for the most important mission of my career. Not because of what it meant for national security, but because of what it meant for my family. The next morning, I did what I always did when I got the call. I disappeared. I left a note for my landlord saying I had to leave town for work, packed my single bag, and drove to the secure facility 2 hours outside the city. The same facility I'd been reporting to for the past 8 years, ever since I was recruited straight out of my final college dropout. People think military careers are straightforward. You enlist, you climb the ranks, everyone sees your progress. But some of us take a different path. Some of us get pulled into programs that don't exist on paper. Programs where your family can never know what you really do, where you can never tell anyone your real rank, where you have to live a lie for the safety of everyone you love. I'd been living that lie for so long that sometimes I forgot who I really was. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see General Rachel Martinez, one of the youngest generals in the history of the Special Operations Command. I saw Rachel the failure, Rachel the disappointment, Rachel the sister who could never measure up. The irony wasn't lost on me. While Ashley was celebrating her promotion to captain, I was already 3 ranks above her. While she was getting assigned to her first real command position, I was running operations in 6 different countries. While my parents were wondering when I'd finally make something of myself, I was already one of the most decorated officers in the military. But none of them could ever know. That was the price of the path I'd chosen. At the facility, I met with my handler, Colonel Brooks. He was one of the few people who knew my real identity, and even he didn't know about my family situation. As far as he knew, I was just another ghost operative with no personal attachments. "Your assignment is straightforward," he said, sliding a folder across the table. "Joint training exercise with the 42nd Infantry Division. You'll be taking command as the evaluating officer. 2 weeks of intensive training and assessment." I opened the folder and felt my stomach drop. There was Ashley's unit roster. There was her name, listed as one of the captains under evaluation. There was her photo, the same confident smile she'd worn at dinner last month when she was talking about her new assignment. "Is there a problem, General?" Colonel Brooks asked. I closed the folder and shook my head. "No problem. When do I leave?" "Tonight. Transport leaves at 2,100 hours. The rest of the day passed in a blur of briefings and preparations. I reviewed personnel files, studied training protocols, and tried to push thoughts of my family out of my mind. This was just another mission. The fact that my sister would be there was just a coincidence. But as I suited up in my dress uniform that evening, looking at the stars on my shoulders and the ribbons across my chest, I couldn't help but think about all the family dinners where I'd sat silent while they talked about Ashley's achievements. All the times my parents had asked me when I was going to do something meaningful with my life. All the times Ashley had looked at me with that mixture of pity and superiority. They had no idea that while they were celebrating her promotion to captain, I was already planning operations that would never make the news. They had no idea that while they were worried about me finding a career, I was already at the top of mine. The transport arrived right on schedule. As I climbed into the military aircraft, I felt the familiar shift that happened every time I left my civilian life behind. Rachel the failure was disappearing. General Martinez was taking over. The flight to the training base took 4 hours. I spent the time reviewing files and preparing for the mission ahead. Ashley's unit had been selected for this exercise because they were considered one of the most promising in their division. They thought they were getting a routine training evaluation. They had no idea they were about to meet their new commanding officer. When we landed at the base, it was just after midnight. I was escorted to my quarters and told that the first formation would be at 0800 hours. That's when I would meet the troops for the first time. That's when I would see Ashley's face when she realized who was standing in front of her. I lay in my bunk staring at the ceiling, wondering how this was going to play out. Part of me was terrified. What if Ashley recognized me immediately? What if she said something that would blow my cover? What if she was so shocked that she couldn't function? But another part of me was excited. For 8 years, I'd been living a lie. For 8 years, I'd let my family think I was a failure. Tomorrow, at least one of them was going to find out the truth. I must have finally fallen asleep because the next thing I knew, my alarm was going off at 0630 hours. I got up, put on my uniform, and looked at myself in the mirror. The woman staring back at me wasn't the family disappointment anymore. She was General Rachel Martinez, and she was about to shock the hell out of her little sister. At 0755 hours, I walked out of my quarters and headed toward the formation area. I could hear the troops already assembled. their voices carrying across the morning air. I could hear Ashley's voice among them, probably talking about what kind of commanding officer they were going to get. I rounded the corner of the building and saw them all standing in perfect formation. 300 soldiers, all at attention, all waiting to meet their new commander. And there in the front row, wearing her captain's insignia, was Ashley. She was looking straight ahead, just like the rest of them. Professional, disciplined, ready for whatever came next. She had no idea that her entire world was about to be turned upside down. I walked to the front of the formation and turned to face them. 300 pairs of eyes were looking at me, but I only cared about one pair, Ashley's eyes, which were currently staring at some point just above my head, following military protocol. "Good morning, soldiers," I said, my voice carrying across the silent formation. And then I saw it. Ashley's eyes widened slightly as she heard my voice. Her gaze dropped from the horizon to my face, and I watched as recognition began to dawn. But before she could react, before she could say anything, another voice cut through the morning air. "General Martinez." Ashley's commanding officer, a full colonel, came running up to me with a look of pure panic on his face. "Ma'am, I'm so sorry. I had no idea you were already here. We weren't expecting you until—" And that's when Ashley's world exploded. I watched Ashley's face go completely white as the colonel's word sank in. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed again, like she was trying to say something but couldn't make any sound come out. Around her, the other soldiers were starting to whisper among themselves, confused about what was happening. "Colonel Peterson," I said calmly, keeping my voice steady even though my heart was pounding. "There's no need to apologize. I prefer to arrive early and observe how units operate when they think no one is watching." Ashley was still staring at me like she'd seen a ghost. I could see her mind racing, trying to process what was happening. This couldn't be her sister Rachel. Rachel was a failure who couldn't hold down a job. Rachel was the disappointment of the family. Rachel wasn't supposed to be wearing a general's uniform and commanding respect from a full colonel. "Yes, ma'am," Colonel Peterson said, snapping to attention. "Should I proceed with the morning briefing?" "In a moment," I replied. "First, I'd like to address the troops." I turned back to face the formation. Ashley was still in the front row, but now she was gripping her hands behind her back so tightly that her knuckles were white. I could see the questions in her eyes, the confusion, the disbelief. "Soldiers," I began, my voice carrying across the field, "you have been selected for this training exercise because you represent the best of what our military has to offer. Over the next 2 weeks, you will be pushed to your limits. You will be tested in ways you've never experienced before. Some of you will rise to the challenge. Others will discover they have more work to do." I let my eyes sweep across the formation, but I kept coming back to Ashley. She was trying so hard to maintain her military bearing, but I could see the shock written all over her face. "This is not a standard training exercise," I continued. "This is an evaluation that will determine which of you are ready for the next level of service to your country, which of you have what it takes to handle classified missions, which of you can be trusted with the security of our nation." The whispers among the troops had stopped completely. Everyone was hanging on my every word. This was clearly not what they had expected when they woke up this morning. "You will address me as General Martinez at all times. You will follow every order without question. You will give me your absolute best effort every single day. Is that understood?" "Yes, ma'am," the formation shouted back in unison, all except Ashley, who was still staring at me with her mouth slightly open. "I didn't hear everyone," I said, looking directly at her. "Is that understood?" Ashley's training kicked in, and she snapped back to attention. "Yes, ma'am," she shouted, but her voice cracked slightly. "Excellent. Colonel Peterson, proceed with your briefing." As Colonel Peterson stepped forward to address the troops, I allowed myself a small smile. The look on Ashley's face was everything I had hoped for and more. She was completely shaken, completely confused, and completely unable to process what was happening. But this was just the beginning. After the briefing, the troops were dismissed to their first training exercise. As they filed out, I noticed Ashley hanging back, clearly wanting to approach me, but not sure if she should. I decided to make it easy for her. "Captain Martinez," I called out. A word. She walked over to me slowly like she was in a dream. When she got close enough, she opened her mouth to speak, but I cut her off. "You seem distracted, Captain. Is there something on your mind?" Ma'am, She stammered, then stopped and took a deep breath. "General, you look exactly like someone I know. It's very distracting." "I see. And who do I look like?" Ashley's eyes were searching my face, looking for any sign that I was going to break character. "My sister, ma'am. You look exactly like my sister." "Interesting. And what does your sister do for a living?" I watched Ashley's face as she struggled with how to answer that question. How do you tell a general that your sister is a failure who can't hold down a job? How do you explain that your sister is the family disappointment? She's between jobs right now, ma'am." "I see. Well, Captain, I suggest you focus on the mission at hand rather than on personal resemblances. You have 2 weeks to prove yourself worthy of advancement. I'd hate for you to waste that opportunity because you were distracted by thoughts of your family." "Yes, ma'am. Of course, ma'am." "Good. Now catch up with your unit. You're falling behind." Ashley saluted and hurried away, but I could see her looking back over her shoulder at me as she went. She was completely rattled, and the training hadn't even started yet. Over the next few days, I watched Ashley struggle with her performance. She kept making small mistakes, missing details, losing focus during briefings. Her fellow officers started to notice. During one particularly difficult exercise, I heard one of them whisper to another, "What's wrong with Martinez? She's usually sharper than this." I knew exactly what was wrong with her. She was spending all her mental energy trying to figure out if I was really her sister or just someone who looked exactly like her. She was trying to reconcile the failure she thought she knew with the general standing in front of her. On the 4th day, I decided to push her a little harder. "Captain Martinez," I said during the morning briefing, "you seem to be having difficulty maintaining focus. Perhaps you'd like to explain to everyone what's been distracting you." Ashley's face went red. "No, ma'am. No excuse, ma'am." "I think there is an excuse, Captain. I think you're more interested in staring at me than in paying attention to your duties. Is that correct?" "No, ma'am." "Then perhaps you can tell me what we just discussed regarding tomorrow's mission parameters." Ashley's mouth opened, then closed. She had no idea what we had been discussing because she had been too busy staring at me, trying to figure out if I was her sister. I'm sorry, ma'am. I wasn't paying attention." The room was completely silent. Admitting that you weren't paying attention during a briefing was a serious offense, especially in front of your peers. "Captain Martinez, you will report to my office at 2000 hours tonight. We need to discuss your performance." "Yes, ma'am." As the briefing ended and the officers filed out, I could see the looks Ashley was getting from her colleagues. They were confused and disappointed. Ashley Martinez was supposed to be one of the best captains in the division, but she was falling apart right in front of everyone. That evening, Ashley knocked on my office door at exactly 2000 hours. "Enter," I called out. She walked in and stood at attention in front of my desk. I let her stand there for a full minute while I finished reading a report, making her wait, making her nervous. Finally, I looked up at her. "Close the door, Captain." She did as ordered and returned to her position at attention. "Sit down," I said. She sat down in the chair across from my desk, but her posture remained rigid. "Captain Martinez, your performance this week has been unacceptable. You're distracted, unfocused, and making mistakes that could get people killed in a real combat situation. I need to know what's going on." Ashley was quiet for a long moment, clearly wrestling with what to say. Permission to speak freely, ma'am. Granted. General, I know this is going to sound crazy, but you look exactly like my sister. And I mean exactly. Same face, same voice, same mannerisms. It's like looking at her in a military uniform. I lean back in my chair. And this resemblance is affecting your ability to do your job. Yes, ma'am. I can't stop thinking about it. I can't concentrate on anything else. Tell me about this sister of yours. Ashley's face changed, and I could see the familiar look of disappointment and frustration that she always had when talking about me. She's not like you, ma'am. She's never been able to stick with anything. She drops out of school, quits jobs, can't seem to find her place in the world. My parents are constantly worried about her. She's 29 years old, and she's never accomplished anything meaningful. Each word was like a knife to my heart, but I kept my expression neutral. She sounds like a disappointment to your family. She is, Ashley said without hesitation. We all love her, but she's not like us. We're achievers. We set goals and we reach them. She just drifts through life without any real purpose. And you think I look like this failure? Yes, ma'am. Exactly like her. It's the strangest thing. I stood up and walked around to the front of my desk, then sat on the edge of it looking down at Ashley. Captain, what would you say if I told you that your sister isn't the failure you think she is? Ashley looked confused. I'm sorry, ma'am. What if I told you that your sister has been living a double life? That she's been serving her country in ways you can't even imagine? That she's been making sacrifices you'll never know about? Ashley's eyes widened. Ma'am, I don't understand. I was about to answer when my secure phone rang. The same phone that had been ringing for 8 years, pulling me away from my family, away from my real life, away from everything I wanted to be. But this time, as I reached for the phone, I saw something I'd never seen before. Pure terror in Ashley's eyes, because she recognized that ringtone. Ashley's face went completely pale as she heard the secure phone ring. Her eyes darted from the phone to my face and back again, and I could see her mind racing. That wasn't just any phone. That was a government-issued secure line, the kind that only very high-ranking officials carried. Excuse me, Captain, I said, reaching for the phone. I need to take this. I answered on the third ring. General Martinez. Ashley's jaw dropped. She was sitting right there, hearing me answer a classified phone call using my real rank. There was no hiding anymore. Yes, sir, I said into the phone. I understand. How immediate is immediate? I listened for a moment, watching Ashley's face as she processed what she was hearing. Sir, I'm currently in the middle of a training exercise with the 42nd Infantry. Can this wait 72 hours? Another pause. Ashley was gripping the arms of her chair, so tightly I thought she might break them. Understood, sir. I'll have my team ready for deployment within 12 hours. I hung up the phone and looked at Ashley. She was staring at me like I had just grown a second head. Captain Martinez, I said calmly, I need to ask you a question, and I need you to answer honestly. Yes, ma'am, she whispered. If your sister Rachel walked into this room right now, what would you say to her? Ashley's voice was barely audible. I don't know, ma'am. Think about it. Your sister, who you just told me is a failure and a disappointment. If she was sitting where you're sitting right now, what would you want her to know? Ashley was quiet for a long moment. I could see tears starting to form in her eyes. I'd want her to know that we love her, she said finally. Even if we don't understand her choices, even if we're disappointed in her, we still love her. What else? I'd want her to know that I'm sorry. Sorry for not defending her when our parents were being hard on her. Sorry for enjoying being the favorite child. Sorry for making her feel like she didn't belong in our family. Now the tears were flowing freely down her face. I'd want her to know that I've always wondered if there was more to her story. Sometimes she'd disappear for weeks at a time, and when she came back, she'd be different, quieter, like she'd seen things she couldn't talk about. I felt my own eyes starting to water, but I kept my voice steady. And if you found out that your sister had been serving her country in secret, that she couldn't tell you what she really did because it would put your entire family in danger, what would you say then? Ashley looked up at me, and I could see the recognition finally dawning in her eyes. Rachel, she whispered. I nodded slowly. Hello, Ashley. She jumped up from her chair and started toward me, then stopped, remembering where we were and who might be listening. Oh my God, she said, her voice breaking. Oh my God, Rachel, what have we done to you? You didn't do anything wrong, I said. You couldn't know. Nobody could know. But we made you feel like garbage. We made you feel like you were worthless. And all this time you were. I was serving my country, just like you, just in a different way. Ashley sat back down heavily. How long? 8 years, since I was 21. The last time you dropped out of college. I didn't drop out. I was recruited. All those jobs you quit. Cover jobs. Every time I got deployed, I had to quit and start over somewhere else. Ashley put her head in her hands. We're horrible people. We're horrible, horrible people. No, you're not. You're good people who didn't have all the information. Mom and Dad, she said suddenly. They don't know either. They can't know. It's classified at the highest levels. If anyone found out about my real job, it could compromise ongoing operations. People could die. So, you just let us think you were a failure. It was the only way to keep you safe. Ashley was quiet for a long moment. Then, she looked up at me with an expression I'd never seen before. It wasn't pity or disappointment. It was respect. You're a general, she said. You're actually a general. I am. And you're my commanding officer. For the next 10 days, yes. This is so messed up, she said, laughing despite her tears. My sister outranks me by 3 whole levels, and I've been treating her like a loser for 8 years. Ashley, I need you to understand something. What I've just told you cannot leave this room. Not ever. You cannot tell our parents. You cannot tell your friends. You cannot tell anyone. If you do, it won't just end my career. It could end my life. Ashley's face went serious. I understand. Do you? Because this is the hardest thing I've ever had to ask of anyone. I need you to go home after this training exercise and continue letting our parents think I'm a failure. I need you to sit through family dinners and listen to them wonder what's wrong with me. I need you to keep this secret for the rest of your life. Rachel, I can't do that. I can't sit there and listen to them talk about you like that anymore. You have to, because if you don't, if you slip up even once, everything I've worked for will be destroyed. Ashley was crying again. This isn't fair. This isn't fair to you. Life isn't fair, Ashley. But it's the life I chose. Why? Why did you choose this? I was quiet for a moment, thinking about how to answer that question. Because someone has to. Because there are threats out there that most people will never know about. Because I'm good at this job and I can make a difference. But the cost is worth it if it keeps people safe. If it keeps our families safe. Ashley stood up again, this time walking over to the window. Outside, we could see her fellow officers heading to dinner. They're going to want to know why I was crying, she said. Tell them you were getting disciplined for your poor performance. Tell them I was hard on you. Were you? Being hard on me. I was doing my job, just like you need to do yours. Ashley turned back to me. What happens now? Now you go back to your unit and you finish this training exercise. You perform at the level I know you're capable of. You prove that you deserve that promotion you've been working toward. And after that, you go home and you continue living your life. And I continue living mine. Will I ever see you again? The real you? I don't know. Maybe someday when I can retire from this job. Maybe someday when the world is safe enough that people like me aren't needed anymore. Ashley walked back over to me and stopped just in front of my desk. I'm proud of you, she said. I'm so proud of you that I can't even put it into words. Ashley, no, let me say this. You're the bravest person I know. You've been protecting all of us, and we never even knew it. You've been sacrificing everything for your country and your family, and we've been treating you like garbage. You didn't know. But we should have known that there was more to you. We should have trusted that you were doing something important, even if we couldn't see what it was. I felt tears starting to form in my own eyes. I've missed you so much. I've missed all of you. We've missed you too. Even when we were angry at you, even when we were disappointed, we missed you. There was a knock on my office door. General Martinez? It was Colonel Peterson's voice. Sorry to interrupt, but we have an urgent communication from Washington. Ashley and I looked at each other. My deployment orders were coming through. Just a minute, Colonel, I called out. I looked at Ashley. This is it. This is where I disappear again. How long this time? I don't know. Could be weeks. Could be months. Will you be safe? I can't answer that. Ashley nodded, understanding. She walked to the door, then turned back. Rachel. Yes. When you come back, will you still be our failure of a sister? I smiled sadly. As far as everyone else knows, yes. Then I'll be waiting for you, and I'll defend you this time. I won't let them talk about you like that anymore. Ashley, you can't. I can't tell them the truth, but I can sure as hell stop them from being cruel to you. She opened the door and walked out, passing Colonel Peterson on her way. General, he said, entering my office. Your orders, ma'am. I took the folder from him and opened it. Inside were deployment orders for a classified mission in Eastern Europe. Departure time, 0600 hours tomorrow. Thank you, Colonel. Please inform the training staff that I'll be leaving early. You'll be taking over the exercise. Yes, ma'am. Will you be returning? That's classified. After he left, I sat alone in my office, thinking about everything that had just happened. Ashley knew the truth now. For better or worse, one person in my family finally understood who I really was. But as I packed my gear and prepared for another deployment, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Because Ashley Martinez wasn't good at keeping secrets. And tomorrow, when I disappeared again, she was going to have to face our parents and pretend like nothing had changed. That was going to be the real test. 6 weeks later, I was sitting in a safe house in Prague, watching the news coverage of a terrorist attack that had been prevented. The news anchors were calling it a miracle that intelligence services had stopped the plot before anyone got hurt. They had no idea that the miracle was actually the result of a classified operation that had cost me 3 broken ribs and a bullet scar on my shoulder. My secure phone rang. For once, it wasn't deployment orders. It was Colonel Brooks with news from home. General Martinez, we have a situation. What kind of situation? Your sister has been asking questions. A lot of questions. About military records, about classified operations, about personnel files that she has no business accessing. My blood went cold. What kind of questions? She's been trying to verify your service record. She's been asking about gaps in deployment schedules. She's been digging into areas that could compromise your cover. Has she told anyone else? Not yet. But General, if she keeps this up, she's going to attract attention from the wrong people. People who might start investigating your family. I closed my eyes. This was exactly what I had been afraid of. Ashley couldn't just let it go. She couldn't just keep the secret and move on with her life. I need to go home, I said. That's not advisable, General. You're still technically deployed. I don't care. If my sister is compromising operational security, I need to deal with it personally. Understood. Transport will be arranged. 24 hours later, I was back in the United States. But instead of going to my apartment, I went straight to Ashley's place. I needed to talk to her before this got any worse. I knocked on her door at 2,200 hours. When she opened it, She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "Rachel," she said, her voice filled with relief. "Thank God you're okay. We need to talk. Now." She let me in and closed the door behind me. Her apartment was a mess. There were papers scattered everywhere, printouts of military regulations, copies of forms and documents. "Ashley, what have you been doing?" "I've been trying to understand. I've been trying to figure out how this all works. How you've been living this double life for 8 years. I told you it's classified. You can't just research classified operations. I haven't found anything classified. I've been looking at public records, trying to piece together the timeline of your disappearances." I looked at the papers scattered around her living room. Personnel forms, deployment schedules, training records. None of it was classified, but together it painted a picture that could lead someone to ask the right questions. "Ashley, you need to stop this. Right now." "I can't stop it, Rachel. I can't just pretend like nothing happened." "You have to. That's what keeping a secret means." "But it's not fair," she exploded. "It's not fair that you have to live like this. It's not fair that our parents think you're a failure. It's not fair that you can't tell anyone who you really are. Fairness has nothing to do with it. This is about national security. No, this is about our family. This is about the fact that we've been horrible to you for 8 years." Ashley sat down heavily on her couch, pushing aside a stack of papers. "I can't do it anymore, Rachel. I can't sit at family dinners and listen to them talk about you like that. I can't watch Mom worry about you and Dad shake his head in disappointment. I can't pretend like I don't know the truth." "You have to." "What if I don't? What if I just tell them that they're wrong about you? What if I tell them that you're serving your country and they should be proud of you?" "Then you'll destroy everything I've worked for, and you'll put our entire family in danger." Ashley looked up at me. "What do you mean, in danger?" I sat down across from her. "Ashley, the people I work against, the threats I deal with, they're not just foreign enemies. Some of them are domestic. Some of them are people who would love to get their hands on information about a classified operative's family." "You mean?" "I mean that if anyone finds out about my real job, our parents become targets. You become a target. Anyone who matters to me becomes a potential weakness that can be exploited." Ashley's face went white. "I never thought about that. That's why the secrecy is so important. It's not just about protecting classified information. It's about protecting the people I love. So what do I do? How do I just go back to pretending like nothing happened?" "The same way I've been doing it for 8 years. You put on a mask and you play the part." "But I'm not as strong as you are." "Yes, you are. You're stronger than you think." Ashley was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked at me with expression I couldn't quite read. "There's something else," she said. "What?" "Mom called me yesterday. She's planning a family dinner for this weekend. She wants to talk to all of us about you." "What about me?" "She's worried, Rachel. Really worried. She said she's been thinking about everything that's happened over the years, and she's starting to wonder if there's something wrong. If maybe you've been depressed or struggling with something you can't talk about." I felt a wave of emotion wash over me. All these years, I'd thought my parents had just written me off as a failure. I had no idea that my mother was actually worried about me. "She wants to stage an intervention," Ashley continued. "She wants to get you help." "What kind of help?" "Therapy. Maybe medication. She thinks you might be dealing with mental health issues that are preventing you from succeeding in life." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "She thinks I'm crazy. She thinks you're hurting. And she's right, isn't she? You are hurting." I looked around Ashley's apartment, at all the papers she'd scattered around trying to understand my life. She was right. I was hurting. I had been hurting for 8 years. What am I supposed to do, Ashley? Show up to this family dinner and let them send me to therapy? Let them try to fix me? Or you could not show up at all. You could disappear again, like you always do. That's not fair. Isn't it? Every time things get difficult with our family, you disappear. Every time they start asking questions, you get deployed. Every time they try to get close to you, you push them away. That's not by choice, isn't it? You chose this life, Rachel. You chose to be a ghost. Her words hit me like a slap across the face. Because she was right. I had chosen this life. I had chosen to be the family failure rather than find a way to balance my real life with my cover life. So what do you want me to do? I want you to come to dinner. I want you to sit at that table and let our parents try to help you. I want you to give them a chance to show you that they love you, even if they don't understand you. And if they try to send me to therapy, then you go, and you find a way to make it work with your cover story. I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, I could see normal people living normal lives. People who didn't have to lie to their families about who they were. People who didn't have to choose between serving their country and being loved by the people who mattered most. There's something else you need to know, I said without turning around. What? I'm being considered for promotion. To become the youngest division general in the history of the Special Operations Command. That's amazing. It would mean more responsibility, more deployments, more time away from home, more time away from us. I turned back to face her. Yes. Are you going to take it? I don't know. For the first time in 8 years, I don't know what I want to do. Ashley stood up and walked over to me. What do you want, Rachel? Not what your country needs. Not what your job requires. What do you want? I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and saw something I hadn't seen in years. I saw someone who cared about me. Someone who loved me enough to risk everything to understand my life. I want to come home, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I want to be part of this family again. I want to stop being the failure and start being your sister. Then come to dinner this weekend. And if it goes badly, if they really do think I'm crazy, then we'll figure it out. Together. I nodded slowly. Okay, I'll come to dinner. Really? Really? Ashley hugged me then, and for the first time in 8 years, I felt like I was exactly where I belonged. But as I held my sister, I couldn't shake the feeling that this dinner was going to change everything. For better or worse, the family failure was about to face her family. And after this weekend, nothing would ever be the same. The question was, would I still be General Martinez when it was all over? Or would I finally just be Rachel, coming home after 8 years of being lost? I guess I was about to find out.